Hello friends, today I'm going to explain what is a Tinkerpop and what is a property graph. It is a basic a tutorial, so it is not, I'm not going to go and deep and explain what is Tinkerpop on something. So I'm going to directly to the what is a graph and what is a simple graph and how it looks, and then how to install the Tinkerpop and how interact with the graph database. Okay, so what is a graph? A graph is a structure composed of vertices and edges. Both vertices and edges can have traits called properties. Vertices denote discrete objects such as a person, place, or an event. Edges denotes a relationship between vertices. For instance, a person may know another person, have been involved in an event, or have recently been a particular place. So the basic, this is a vertices, and these are all vertices here, and you see it, and there is a edge between these vertices, and this is called a relationship. Two different vertices here. A person belongs to the software kind of thing. And there are properties like you see it, name and age. These are all key and value pair. Always it stores into that vertices, and where edge also has some edge properties. So this is a basic fundamental of a graph database, a graph. Uh, and then coming to the Tinkerpop, and Tinkerpop is basically it's an open source vendor agnostic graph computing framework distributed under the commercial friendly Apache 2 license. When data system is Tinkerpop enabled, it users are able to model their domain as a graph and analyze that graph using the Gremlin graph traversal language. So I'm going to focus on the Gremlin graph language. So how you can interact with the basic commands, how to create a basic vertices and edges and creating the relationship, and how you can write a query, and how you can interact with the console. So coming to the Tinkerpop, so you have two sections of Tinkerpop. One is a Gremlin console, and another one is a Gremlin server. So Gremlin console is a in-memory graph database, the property-based graph. So where you can write, you can create, and you can remove the graph. And but by the time you come out that Gremlin console, so by default that graph is going to be deleted. So again, if you again launch it the Gremlin console, again you have to recreate it the whatever the graph you priorly created. So that's it, and let's jump into the installation of the graph, the Gremlin console. So let's see how we can install it, and then how we can interact with the Gremlin console. Thank you. So there are three steps I'm going to explain. So one is the downloading Tinkerpop Gremlin console. So there's a 3.4.c and working with the Gremlin console and some basic commands. Okay, so let's see. Go to Google and then type the Tinkerpop and press enter. So you see the Tinkerpop homepage, and click on this and click on the Gremlin console. So then it start downloading. So it gives links, number of links. So choose any one of them. So then it started downloading. So it is total 74.4 MB size of the. So once it is downloaded, so go to the downloaded folder location and extract the zip file. So in Mac OS, you see here, and just double click on that, and it extract the file. So because I already downloaded and extracted this folder, so if you see this folder like Apache Tinkerpop console 3.4.6, and see the bin and config and data docs and ext directory and lib directory and license directory. So and so. So these automatically it extracted that zip file. So let's go to that command line. So that's a shell, and let's see how we can interact with the Tinkerpop Gremlin console. Okay, so go to the directory where you download it. So extract it, and it is my home directory, and download it, and type that Apache Tinkerpop. So here you see the 3.4.6, and from here you can type the Tinkerpop uh, console gremlin dot shell. So once it is done, this command, then it start executing that gremlin console. So if you type help, so you see the list of available commands. Here it is import display, and so we will let you know, like I'll let you know all these commands whenever it needed. Okay, so and come out this gremlin console, you can type exit or quit, whatever it is. Okay, so let's go to, okay, let's see the basic commands in gremlin console. So by going to the gremlin console, okay, so type the gremlin shell. Once the gremlin shell appears, then you can start writing the gremlin commands. So before that, I would like to give a small introduction about this. So there's a plugin called a Tinkerpop Tinker Graph, so that you can create a graph object here by using the Tinkerpop APIs. So if it is not there, this plugin, so you have to manually import this particular plugin. So using by typing the command plugin use Tinkerpop dot tinker graph. Okay, by default, this version, specific version, it is by default, it is imported. And let's see how to create the graph object. So here it is a tinker graph object. So use any variable, whatever it is meaningful for you. Like for me, I'm using the G for graph, and using the tinker graph dot open method. So open method takes some arguments also, but I'm not going to explain or describe about this open method. We'll see later. So then there is a method called a traversal. So the traversal method is basically it's going to create that graph and assign to the tinker graph object into the G variable. So when it is created, this is the initial graph created with zero vertices and zero edges. So there are no vertices and exist, and there are no edges exist in this. So this is a by default graph. So what if I have an existing graph? How do I import that graph to here? So again, the Gremlin console is only memory based, property memory based graph. So if whatever the vertices you created, whatever the edges you created, whatever the graph you created, it is up to that the Gremlin console only. Once you come out from the Gremlin console, it's gone. So you're not going to get it that graph again. So if you really want to reuse that same graph, either you have to import, you export to a or the say the file, the graph file, and then re-import that graph into a Gremlin console. So this is a basic fundamental. So um, once you really interact with the uh, your own graph databases like Neo4j or Tiger Graph or other graph databases, Neptune Graph. So that graph is permanently saves, and then you can retrieve that graph at any time, anyway. So let's see the basic graph traversal queries. So graph traversal query dot v for vertices, and then use the count method. So it returns the number of vertices available in this graph, but we don't have any vertices here. And the same way edges. So if I type g.edge.count, it returns the number of edges available in this graph. So there are 0, right? So we don't have any existing vertices and edges here. I will show you a little bit time, so how we can import, how can I import that graph, existing graph into the Gremlin console. I can show you that also. Before going to that, let's see the basic vertices creation and basic edge creation in this demo. Okay, so let's see, create a basic vertex. So you have to use add v. Add v means add vertices, and then give the label name here, whatever the label name you want to it. let's say I'm going to create a airport stations. Okay, airport is any airport like Dallas or DFW or Austin or Houston, whatever it. So then once it is there, then there is another method called a property. So as I told you, the graph is a property based, right? If any property you want to store it into the vertices, you have to use a property method. So the property method takes two arguments, one like many are like two three arguments also, and some property method takes different arguments. So the property method, the first argument is a key and second argument is a value. So whenever you enter without any coordinate key, I'll explain what is a coordinate key. But if you entering the property method and key and value, always this value is storing as a array type. So that means you can store on the same key more than one value. So if you don't specify the coordinate key, then it's stored as an array. Let's see how it stores like that. So I'm going to type my key is code, comma station code is at Dallas Airport. So once I use this method, then it add this property to this particular vertices. But I'm not mentioning ID of this vertices because if I don't mention the ID, by default, Gremlin console assign the ID as an integer type. So if you really want to add your own ID, then you have to define your own ID here by type ID and then whatever the value you want to assign it to as a vertex ID. So I'm storing as a 1 and press enter. So the moment you press enter, it created a vertex with the ID number 1, but it is not going to give you any details about that vertex. So now if you want to see my vertex, then type g.v and I want to see all the values of this vertex, then use a value map method. So the value map method is taking the argument a boolean type that is true. That means it lists out all the properties for about that vertices. So you see this ID is 1 and the label is station and the code is equal to like this. This is the code is a key and the value is Dallas. So as I told you, property, if you provide the key and value, always this value is going to be stored as a array or list of values. Okay, let's create another vertices. Um, Here it is the another vertex creating station property. Let's say you're traveling from Dallas to New York or LAX. So I'm creating a New York city. So then property t.id comma 2. So this is optional ID providing. So if you don't provide it, it by default creates Gremlin. So just in case this step is additional. So I'm just specifying the number 2 here for consistency. Okay. So now there are two vertex available. So let's see, can I look the values of the two vertex values property values at the same time. So just use the query g.v and then value map and true. So it will show a list of vertex and with property values. So ID and the label, here it is ID1 and label is station and the code. This is your property key and this is your property value. So ID and label are immutable, so you cannot be modify this once it is created. So you might modify this code, uh, Dallas to some other city. You can update these values and or you can add new property key, etc. So I can show that query next tutorial. We have two vertices. So one is Dallas and another one is New York City. Okay. So now the time to create a relationship between Dallas to New York City. So when you want to create a relationship, so we are going to create an edge here. So the edge is going to create a relationship between Dallas to New York. So let's see how to create an edge. So when you create an edge, So you have to specify the what is a from and what is a to. So here the my station is from station is Dallas. I'm traveling to New York from Dallas. So I'm creating a edge from Dallas, that is my from address, and to is New York. So when I say that to, so I have to specify the ID number or vertex. Okay, so let's create the edge, add edge, and give the label name. So I'm going to give a route, and then use the from method. So the from method takes an argument of ID, string variable, and then the vertex object. So I'm going to create, uh, pull the query, like just g.v1. So that g.v1 means I'm querying uh, vertex ID 1. Okay, so the vertex ID 1 is a Dallas. And then 2. So where are you going from Dallas to? So that is New York City. So then I have to specify the g.v of 2. That v of 2 means is the ID number. So then, so this argument always ID of that vertex. Okay. So then close it. If you want to store any properties in this particular edge, use a property method here. So I'm not going to use anymore the properties here. So I'm just creating the edge between Dallas to New York City. See, so now the edge is created. So the edge ID is number 5. So I didn't provide any ID here. By default, it assigned the Gremlin console. So let's see whether edge is created between Dallas to New York City. So how do you know that the edge it shows from Dallas to New York City? So there are ways you can query it. Okay, so let's query the first one, so Dallas City. So okay, so retrieve g.v, that Dallas vertex ID is 1. Okay, and then dot, there is a one more method called out edge. So I'm going to explain that methods, out edge, out, in and in edge, uh, all those methods in the next lesson. So right just now I'm focusing on out edge only. Okay, so then specify the, that's it, press enter key. So it shows that edge is created, so that means it is attached to that vertex. Okay, so let's see other way. So let's see the New York way. So if the New York City vertex has an in edge, okay, so g.v of 2, that is a New York City ID, and this is not out edge, so edge is coming to New York City vertex. So then you have to specify in edge, then press enter. You see the same ID and same relation. So if you want to see the properties of this in edge, use value map true. It, I'm going to explain another lesson of value map method. So all other properties on this. So just focusing on how we can see the details of that particular edge. Okay. So now you see the relationship from to, that's from Dallas to New York City. So Dallas is out edge and New York City is in edge. So let's see how to drop this edge in between. Okay, Dallas to New York City. So you can drop either out edge or in edge. So let's drop from out edge part. So g.v1 and out edge dot drop. So I drop the edge. So there is no edge again from Dallas to New York City. So again, if you really want to see it, out edge, it is going to be empty 1. So that's it. So now I want to drop my vertices. So if you want to drop your vertices, again use your vertex, read the particular vertex and then drop it. So I want to drop only a Dallas. So use g.v of ID, then drop. So again, if you query it, you don't say it. So but if you query it, you see only one vertex available, that is a New York City. So let's see, yes, it's a New York City. Now let's drop these two. So I'm going to give ID number and then use a drop method. So drop method drops it. So now if I count how many vertices, zero vertex, because I drop everything. Okay, so that is a way you create the vertex, and that is a way you create the edge, and that is you, you can validate by querying out edge or in edge, or just you can also write the query g.e. It lists out the all edges here. Okay, so that's a basic tutorial now. So we are creating and so we have already existing graph, so I need to import that existing graph into a Tinkerpop Gremlin console. So I'm going to give a demo to next tutorial. Stay tuned. Thank you.